You won't know this, Gio, because it was quite clear when we recorded our previous video that you didn't understand, you didn't know what my stance was on Evan Ferguson. So we've just finished recording a video, and you very much said that that you thought Brighton said at the start of the transfer window that they wouldn't sell him until the end. And I very much bought into that narrative. But I think the whole thing has been spun by Brighton. So first of all, I don't think there's nothing. I've had a look and I've investigated some of the things that Herzler said at the start of the transfer window about his foot injury. And I've extrapolated from that there was really no way that he was ever going to be fit this for any period of time in this transfer window. And I think he would have failed a medical anyway. So I did think that might have been a little bit of a red herring. Almost the only time they could sell him was at the end of the transfer window. But I think they spun that quite well. I didn't firmly believe that there was some long line of people waiting to go and take Ferguson. I'm not saying nobody wants him, but I don't think the line is anywhere near as long as we were led to believe that it might be, certainly. And I'm a little bit mindful of that we might sign an injury-prone player. This is what I argued in my video earlier on today, and I was expecting a big pushback on it, truth be known. You know, sometimes you press send on a video and you sort of wince, think, I'm probably going to say something that's quite unpopular here. But I was amazed to read so many of the comments were actually saying, no, he's injury-prone. This is too much of a risk, because I could just see in my mind's eye. I'm not against getting him, and I know you're not as well when you'd have him on loan. I could just see in my mind's eye this situation where Ferguson comes in. We've got Ferguson injured, Fulkrug injured. You could just almost, I could see him pulling up with a strain or something in a game. He's injured, Fulkrug's injured, Antonio's injured. And I do think it's a risk. And the more I think about it, I do think it's Graham Potter that's giving me this confidence that the way he has managed to get this ramshackle squad of basically midfielders together and fullbacks at centre back and still managed to get a tune out of them. I do feel that I'm not feeling pressurised, and that's not particularly good for videos. It's not particularly good for views or anything like that. But for once, and transfers are exciting, for once I am looking at it and thinking, I'm not sure I want to be pressurised into doing a deal that I don't think would be good for West Ham, particularly borrowing, basically mortgaging ourselves against next season's money to bring in a player that we're not completely certain about. So I'm sure of one thing. The other narrative I don't particularly like, Ferguson's an £100 million player. I think all these things suit Brighton. Oh, well, here's our £100 million player. Loads of people want him, and you can only buy him now. I'm thinking, no, I'm not so sure. I think my point is, I wouldn't be totally, tin hat on, I wouldn't be totally disappointed if we didn't sign anyone in this window.
I think I want them on loan. I wouldn't spend money on. There is one exception to that, so I should add there's one exception. We'll get into in regards to the striker. I definitely don't want to buy because of the pool of strikers that we are looking at. They're okay, but none are jumping out at me. I think in the summer, go spend a significant sum of money and let's get this position fixed once and for all. There was a belief maybe that under previous managers, we couldn't get a striker to work at West Ham. I didn't completely buy into that. I just felt that we bought the wrong type of striker for David Moyes. That was it. It wasn't that Moyes couldn't get a striker to work. I just thought we bought the wrong one for David Moyes in the way that he played. You look at Scamacca, you can't tell me, no one's going to convince me that that's a David Moyes type striker. Not in a million years are you going to convince me of that, right? But those who sit on the side of the argument, which is you couldn't get strikers to work, they win the debate because I have no evidence. I can say, well, okay, not really a striker. Marco, okay, not really a striker. I've got none. There isn't one, right? So they win the debate. I'm willing to concede it. But what we can both agree on, regardless of which side you sit on, is we didn't get it right. We haven't got one to work, right? None that we signed. And even with Lopetegui and Fulkrug as well, even before that with Pellegrini and Sebastian Haller, the striker at West Ham has not worked. The last striker that worked at West Ham was probably Andy Carroll, Diafra Sakho, those types of players, because Carroll suited Sam Allardyce. Sakho came in, low fee, and was good for a period of time. But since then, we've not really had one that's actually been good for a large period of time. And I just want this summer, I want us to nail it. Finally, just nail it. If there's one transfer, I want Potter, McCauley, and co to get right this summer. It's that striker, that replacement for Michail Antonio and Nicolas Fulkrug. And we've all got our preferences. We've all got our list of 1, 2, 3s in our head. I am quite sure in the 1, 2, 3 list, no one's got Brian Brobby or Evan Ferguson. I could be wrong. There might be some out there, but it's certainly not on mine. I would rather keep the money in the summer, get it right. Don't be forced into spending money this window that's going to handcuff you in the summer. Because one thing I will not put up with is this crap that we've had over the last few months, which is we couldn't sign Duran because we signed Guilherme. I don't buy it, okay? Because we spent loads of money after Guilherme, so I'm not buying that, right? But let's just, it's done now. It's in the rear view mirror. But what I will not do is put up with this crap again next season. So I don't want us to be forced into signing someone like Brobby, and then in this next summer next season we couldn't get a striker for 60 million because we spent 30 million, so we had a cap of 30 million on a striker in the summer as well. Don't want it. Basically, I want to remove all possible excuses now, so that in the summer, West Ham have got no excuses. Go get that striker that can finally be a success at West Ham, because we've had really good success considering. Now, Antonio was fantastic as a striker for a period of time. He was one of the best strikers in a calendar year in the Premier League in terms of goals scored. But out with that, I think we've actually done quite incredible in terms of success, considering we've not really had a striker. When you think about it, you look at Aston Villa with Watkins, you look at Newcastle with Isak. We've not had that for the last couple of seasons, but we've won a trophy. Get that number 9 sorted, and it ain't going to get fixed in this window. I've accepted that. I don't expect that, but I expect it to get sorted in the summer window. But what I don't want to do is use this one as an excuse for failing in the upcoming window. I feel quite strongly about it, but I am willing to spend somewhere, Gonzo.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I mean, it's something to an avenue to explore for another day, maybe. But the fact that it's rumoured Potter sought assurances from the club that he would basically have a certain level of autonomy over transfers before accepting the job. That is quite interesting. Would he do that? He's going to do that, and he's going to be aware in some. You can't do that and not be aware of the budget. That comes with having the autonomy. Means you're going to manage the finances as well. So that's going to make anyone a little bit more frugal if they've, if you know you've got 60 quid for the shop at Tesco at the end of the week, you're probably not going to go into the probably not going to co-op and spend more than you need to, are you? And I do wonder if that's going to be a certain level of that anyway. But I with the spending, I do find it really, really interesting, because I think the perceived lack of spending is making pressure be applied to maybe buy players and spend more on players than ordinarily we would like to. But before I go into that, talking about spending money on players, I'm please point in the direction of today's video sponsor, which is Stocks FC, which is a bit like the stock market, but for footballers, allows you to buy shares in your favourite footballers. Scrap that, forget your favourite footballers. Even if you don't like the footballers and you think they're going to do well, you can buy shares in them. I'm on a voyage of discovery at the moment. I have two players in my portfolio. Jared Bowen, I've already explained on previous videos why I think he's going to do well. And also I've signed Wissa up to my portfolio today. Why? Because Gio told me to. I'm very, very interested in your advice on this. But, Gio, for stocks, there has been a new player released, available to purchase. Did you think he's going to be any good or not?
Yeah, Ahmad.
Are you? Well, calm down.
Brilliant. That was quite good. That
Okay.
unscripted. That was quite good. But I should explain very quickly with Stocks FC, and this is one of the unique things they've got going, is that Ahmad is up for sale at the minute for the next 4 days only, at fixed price. Then at the end of the sales period, any unsold stocks get destroyed. So you can't. The only way you can then purchase stocks in the MAD is off other users. So this stops an unlimited amount of stocks being sold in the same player. And that's one thing. One of the aspects I do like about it. So if you fancy getting your hands on the MAD, you got to do it now. You've got 4 days before his finishes. But there's more players to come. I'm waiting on a couple of players that aren't released yet on the platform, and I really want them. So I'm waiting for Stocks FC to release them, so I can then get them at the base price. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, like with the stock market itself, prices can fluctuate, so you have to do this stuff responsibly. I am in profit at the moment. I would like to say that, and we've got a really good offer for you at the moment, which is if you sign up using either the QR code, which is on your screen now. I'm not sure how you're going to scan it since you're watching it on your phone, but if you can't do that, then what you can do.
Do you want to check a tip?
Go on.
You're watching a video. This has got nothing to do with stock. This is a geo life
Yeah,
hack. Naked fun thing topic
yeah.
thing there. If you're watching something on your phone with a QR code, if you screenshot it, then you go into your photo gallery and click the QR code, it works.
Well, you learn something every day. Well, you can do that, or you can just scroll below from where these two handsome faces are talking towards you and click on the Stocks FC link. If you do that, you get 5 loan players temporarily. I got given 5. They were Liverpool players, and I actually made a profit on them. So before I'd even spent
Yeah,
any money,
do you know who
on
I
some.
got on loan?
Go on.
With Sam.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I can't recall the other 3,
I,
but
I, I got I got Diaz and Salah in my pack, and
all
immediately,
right.
yeah. So I did really well on it. So look, go and check it out. I'm going to do a little West Ham journey on it as well. So yeah, keep following that. The link's in the description below. Please do use it though, because then they'll know you've come from Hammer's Chat. It's a lot better for us than you just going and searching it on the Play Store or something like that. Gio, with regard to this perceived, one thing I hear, and I hear it quite a lot, and it's one of these things that both things can't be true. Why don't we just go and spend the money? Sullivan always does this, and there's this frustration that he doesn't. And I think on some, I think that's valid. I certainly think with the Angel Gomez one, I think we're being really tight on that. And I don't think we understand. I think on free transfers, I think we expect it to be totally free rather than thinking actually you can save a lot of money and you can give the player a sweetener and his representatives a sweetener, and you can go and get a £25 million player for 8 million. That's the benefit of it. I think we want it to be totally free. It's just not going to be that. In terms of other players, well, I think sometimes we just spend money like a drunken sailor. I think we spend pay too much money for certain players. So I noticed, and I think this narrative, and I do think it's a bit of a false narrative. West Ham never spend any money. Why don't we just go and pay the fee now? Sometimes we look at what we paid for Max Kilmer. Now, Max Kilmer played very well in the last game, but we're a club that spent £40 million on a central defender. So I think we have the capability to do that. What I don't want is I don't feel the club. I don't think the club particularly care what fans think anyway, but I certainly don't think they feel the pressure from this. But I do look at people like, particularly Evan Ferguson. I quite wanted Brobby, and in many respects, I probably wanted Brobby more than I wanted Ferguson, if truth be known, because I'm worried about the fitness aspect. But I do sort of understand when they were saying, and I know you do with this as well, 30 million obligation, you have to buy. But well, no, I'd like to try before we buy, really, on that. And I think if it is coming down and everyone is saying, no, you have to buy him, and Brobby is 30 million, Evan Ferguson is 45, 50 million. I just think we have to be willing to walk away. And I think as long as it does get spent in the summer, I don't mind.
I think you've just fallen into your old Chinese Indian thing here a little bit, because
Oh, go on.
I think it comes down to personal preferences and desires as well in regards to the player we're being linked to. So a lot of people that want Broadby and are convinced he'd be really good at West Ham, they are naturally going to say, we'll just pay the money because they're convinced he's going to be a success. Whereas those who aren't convinced or don't know enough about him perhaps won't use that phrase in regards to Brian Broadby, but they may use it to a different one. So I won't use it for Broadby, but I'll tell you what, we got linked to, say, Liam Delap. I would say just pay the money, whatever. If it's 60 million, just pay the money and get him in.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Brighton, whoa, no, thank you. And it's just purely down to personal preference. I think there is a bit in the middle where, yes, some people will say it, but I will be guilty of saying it in regards to some deals. And then I will say Sullivan can be, I don't use tight sometimes, bad with money and makes bad offers, like John Duran, for example, bidding 57 million when they want 80 million. That's just stupid. So do I want him to go paid 80 million? Not really. I don't think he's worth that. I think that's too rich for me. But I get why some people would say, well, paid 80 then. That's the guy you want. Stop insulting them, kind of thing. So I think there's a little bit in the middle, really. But like I said, for this window, I'm happy to sit and do nothing. I was going to talk about potentially spending money, but we might need to keep that for another day because otherwise we'll be here for another 15, 20 minutes discussing it, I think. It's a
absolutely.
debate.
Yeah. And I'm like that, Gio. I wish we would spend the money on Gomez because, it is. I think what I don't. What I
Well,
mean is,
that's a different debate. Sullivan's got a reluctance to spend money on wages and agents' fees unless I know
yeah.
people say, "Hey, unless it's a certain agent." There's no evidence of that. We have a preference to buy his players, perhaps, but there's no evidence there's been huge money paid to that agent in particular. But
Well,
there's a suspicion.
the irony is, if he was a sort, because I did check, 'cause it's Unique Sports, that's Salthouse's group,
Yeah,
and his client list. Did go and double check yesterday, and Ferguson is not on there,
no,
ironically, I think if he was, we'd probably have him by now. So I think, and if in the case of Wan-Bissaka, it worked in our favour. I think in the case of some, it doesn't, and we maybe get players that we don't want. We'll certainly do, but yeah, nothing's cut and dried. Nothing's black and white with this stuff. But anyway, yeah, just tin hat on there. Certainly, I wouldn't be upset. I'd rather us get no one in this window than pay £50 million for a striker that could break down. And we find out we've got two injury-prone strikers on our hand that are unavailable to play. Before I go, just one last time, pointing in the direction of Stocks FC. Links in the description below. Go and check it out. And now myself and Gio have safely bought our shares in Wissa. I'm sure you are welcome to do so.